were in a lamp room contained above the ground at the main entrance of Lily Mine near Beperton in Mpumalanga. Pretty Kambule wasn't meant to be working that morning, but she had agreed to cover up for a co-worker. Her 8-month-old daughter was at home with her father. At 8 a.m. that same morning, the mine collapsed and the container with the 3 miners was buried 70 meters underground. 6 years earlier, in Chile, the collapse of the San Jose copper and gold mine led to 33 miners being trapped 700 meters underground for 69 days. The president of Chile, much of his cabinet, and the international community, including our own mineral rescue services, aided in the world-famous rescue operation. In the end, all 33 miners were rescued. In the case of Lily Mine, it would appear that Pridin Kambule, Solomon Nyirende, and Yvonne Mnisi's lives were not valued as much as the lives of those Chilean miners. Despite reports that 3 days later, tapping sounds could be heard from within the container, the rescue operation was called off within a month. And for 5 years now, former miners and the victims' families have done everything in their power to have the remains of their fallen miners retrieved. In December 2019, after having left office as the executive mayor of the city of Johannesburg, I established the People's Dialogue, a platform established to allow South Africans to express their views about the political future they aspire to for our country. It was then that Harry Mazibuko, official spokesperson of the Lily Mine families, reached out to me. After he was done telling me about the challenges that they were facing as former miners at Lily Mine, there was no way I could turn a blind eye to the Lily Mine tragedy. I had to do something. In hindsight, nothing could have ever prepared me for what I was to experience the day of our meeting. I met the families and former miners under a tree at the camp where they've now lived for more than 2 years. There was no denying the pain they'd suffered so far for so long since the fall of the container with their loved ones trapped inside. The look of long suffering, struggle, and having no more tears left to cry. The kind of pain you feel when your suffering leaves you feeling helpless because those responsible for it responded with callous disregard. They told me how they felt the government had forgotten about them. To this day, their words have never left me. It is like we do not have a government here. Since then, Action SA has been involved in the long-term legal challenge to achieve 3 non-negotiable requirements. First, retrieving the container. Second, paying the outstanding wages to the former miners. And third and last, holding those responsible for this tragedy accountable. Today, we convene this webinar to commemorate the Lily Mine tragedy, honor their families, and discuss current developments regarding efforts to have the fallen container retrieved. I hope that somewhere, somehow, we as a nation can once again cast the spotlight on Lily Mine tragedy. I hope that we can demonstrate to these brave former miners and affected families that we hear their cries, acknowledge their pain, that we care, and that as their fellow countrymen and women, we'll continue to stand with them until the remains of their loved ones are returned to them. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I'd like to hand back to Lerato to facilitate the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those remarks, Mr. Mashaba. Harry, Mr. Mazibuko, I'm going to kick off this discussion and start with you. But for the benefit of our audience, and just before we get into the meat of our discussion, let me ask my colleague to please play a video, visuals of what took place and what was covered just after the mine collapsed.
This is meaningless without them. They want the search for the 3 workers to continue, but the mine's efforts to find funding for the recovery operation have been fruitless despite sourcing services of a business rescue.
God, please intervene. God, have mercy on us. This is the song these families rely on for strength. They didn't go home for Christmas, but decided to stay in this house close to the mine. They've been living here since the mine closed.
It hurts a lot. I go a day without eating because it really hurts. We even struggle to go to sleep at midnight. At 1 a.m., we're already awake. We are not at peace at all.
I'm deeply hurt that my child left saying he's going to work and he never returned. And those meant to help us are not helping. I have long lost appetite.
The families say they are disappointed at how government handles the situation.
I am not all right. My heart aches because I find myself living here in the bushes in some cracked house because of the children trapped inside that mine. Now I say it's enough.
So, but it's enough.
Msebenzi Zwane has played with us together with the president because he too has not acted.
Thank you for that, colleague. Babheri, you were a former miner,
Yes.
you were there. We can hear really from the soundbite the heartache that these parents have suffered since they last saw their children. Can you just take us through what happened? What happened on the 5th of February, 2016, that day?
Thank you very much once more, Kane, for the opportunity given. The 5th of February 2016, to us, it was like any other day. So we arrived there in the morning because the shift starts at 6 o'clock. It's fortunate or unfortunate because me, I was working as a safety, on a safety department as a safety representative for the employees. So I was supposed to have a safety meeting with our colleagues who are working at the mechanical workshop. So on my way to attend to address that meeting, I've met Yvonne. Yvonne was apparently promoted there at the lamp room. So his money or salaries were not in. So he was complaining. He said, he asked me, I said, no, I'm rushing into a meeting. He said, no, I've talked to your fellow comrades. So they didn't attend to my issue, how you guys are operating. I said, no, it's for the first time you're raising it with me. I'll attend to it as soon as I'm done with the meeting because it's a 5 minutes meeting. So when I'm done, I was heading to the lamp room to meet Yvonne to attend to her crisis. All of a sudden, when I was about in like less than 100
Harry?
meters to
But
where
Harry?
the container was. And
But
then I
Harry?
received a call from my senior. So yes.
We are losing you just a bit. Maybe if you just moved slightly, just so that you can get better signal. We are losing a little bit of what you're saying, and I think that what you are recounting is quite important. So can you just try and move for a second so you can repeat what you've just said? Just as you were meeting Yvonne in the lamp room, can you take us from there? I'm so sorry. We seem to be having.
Yes, while I was heading to meet her, I received the call from my senior.
Colleagues, I do apologize for that. Harry is in quite a remote part of Barberton at Lily Mine, and so we've just lost connection with Harry, but we will get Harry right back. Let me come to you, Herman, Mr. Mashaba. You responded to a call from Harry from the Lily Miners to get involved in this matter. Why is this Lily Mine matter among all others? Why is this one so close to your heart? Why is this so important to you? Why did you take this up?
You know, for some reason, Lerato, when we launched the People's Dialogue on the 6th of December 2019, early January, receiving lots of WhatsApp messages, SMSs. There's this particular person sent the first message. I ignored it because I've had, honestly, thousands. But I think on the fourth one, that's when I felt, let me return this person's message, only to find it was Harry Mazibuko, and he related what was happening with the Lily Mine. I've always heard about the Lily Mine tragedy over media and so forth, but I did not really have the intimate knowledge. Relating this over the phone, it was so emotional that I said to him, I think if I'm not wrong, it was on a Thursday. I said, look, next Tuesday, I've got an opening. Is it possible I can come out and actually be able to see for myself? And fortunate enough, with my colleagues, we drove over to Barberton, took us 4.5 hours to get there. We found Harry and the team under the tree, related the matter to us. Really quite, it'll break your heart if you're not a strong person, because it is inhuman, it's evil. And the only thing I could offer them was to say, look, let me see if I can, in fact, not to say, let me commit as at the time where People's Dialogue, that we will get you the best lawyers in Johannesburg to represent you. I said, there's not much I can do, because from what I've heard, what Harry and the families related to me, they'd given up on our government. So I said, let me get you the lawyers to deal with this, and came back. And that's when I approached the legal firm that's now handling the matter on their behalf to date.
Is Harry back with us? I believe he is. Harry, if you can hear me, thank you so much, Bob Harry. I've just asked Mr. Mashaba why he got involved in this matter. Let me ask you, why did you reach out to Herman Mashaba? I mean, you said the DMRE, we saw in your video clip that they were responsible for this issue. Why did you call on Herman Mashaba and not go the route of pursuing the entities that are responsible in an incident like this one?
Yes, it's because every day you are looking state. So I've seen on Facebook the presence of South Africans like us, after being trying to get hold of the relevant stakeholders in this thing, be the mine management, be the business rescue practitioners, be the DMRE, without any success. So it's whereby we took our chances that, no, this is one of the greatest platform. Maybe we can get some. Unfortunately enough, till to date, we are receiving a proper respective by the officials or the stakeholders.
I think it's very clear from what, if for the benefit of our viewers who may not have heard Mr. Mazibuko, is that they did try. They tried the relevant stakeholders to intervene and try and ensure that what has happened at Lily Mine can be resolved, and that what the tragedy that befell the 3 miners who were trapped in the container could be brought back to the surface so that they could be returned to their families. With that, Mr. Mashaba, you then met with the families. You then did what? As you came back from that first meeting that we saw you under the tree having the first meeting with the families and the miners, what was the next step that you took? You did what?
Well, the next step was to contact one of the legal firms in the city of Johannesburg, contacted one of my friends to recommend a law firm that we could use. And that's when I was introduced to Wendell Bloom and his firm, and they gave us a commitment to find a resolution to this matter, and obviously made it really very clear this is going to really be a long, protracted matter, but ultimately they promised that they will find justice for the affected families and the miners.
Wendell is right here. Wendell Bloom, is the senior legal counsel that subsequently became engaged in this matter. Wendell, can you perhaps just walk us through the legal case? You were engaged, you take this up, you are now leading the matter on behalf of the minors. Can you just take us through a short timeline as to what your experience has been since you started working on this case?
Thank you, Lerato, and thank you for the opportunity to add a serious issue.
We seem to have sound. Wendell, if you can hear me, I'm going to ask my colleague just to play a clip of what really moved somebody like Herman Mashaba to take up this case to the level where it's now sitting with Wendell Bloom and his colleagues at the law firm on behalf of the Lily miners. Colleague, can you just play that clip for us so we can see what the miners are dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
Spiso Mavuso, Pritinkambule's brother, has even dropped out of university. Mavuso says his sister's 4 children need provision and he is hoping for assistance.
Because it was quite difficult for me to cope with my studies due to that incident that took place on the 5th of February here. And then I was forced to drop out, to come and camp here, to fight for our loved ones that are still trapped underground, to be retrieved, to fight for government intervention.
Thank you for that, colleague. While we wait for Wendell Bloom, Bob Harry, I'm hoping that you are still with us. What gave you and the miners the idea to camp outside of Lily Mine for such a long time? Where did you get that? What are you hoping to achieve by that action, by sitting outside the mine, effectively living right at the foothill of the mine, where mine management and whoever passes through can see you on a daily basis? What impact do you think that is going to have? We seem to be struggling. Mr. Mashaba, perhaps you can take that up. You've had intimate dealings with the families. Where do you think they get this from? What do you think can be achieved by them sitting outside? It's been over 2 years that they've been there. Clearly, nobody seems to be taking them seriously. Why do you think they are doing this?
I think, Lerato and fellow South Africans and people of the world, Harry, the families and affected miners, for me, these are the unsung heroes of the world, because as far as I'm concerned, our government wanted these people to be the forgotten people, and they refused to be forgotten. And they fought, and you just have to go and really look at where they're camping, the living conditions. It will make you as a human being. It'll make you as a human being really feel guilty of how can another man subject another to such a living conditions. I've got a lot of respect for them to say not in our name. And I think this is something that has really served as an inspiration to all of us as South Africans to say, when we see injustice, never just really give up, that you are nobody. I think Harry and the families, they are paying a price for the sacrifice that they are making. But I can assure South Africans and people of the world, people like this are heroes, because they are the ones who are there to really face and fight for justice. And I really take my head off to them, because of the sacrifice that they've gone through over the period that they've been camping there. It's unbelievable, because I can tell you our government would have made them to be forgotten if they did not really take up this fight and take it directly.
Thank you for that. For our viewers out there, please bear with us. I did say that this was going to be one of those conversations that wasn't going to be easy. Even the airwaves are responding that we are losing connection with a couple of our panel members. So just bear with us as we get them back. I will bring them back into the discussion and have us continue. Wendell, I'm hoping that you can hear me. Can you hear me? Wendell Bloom is legal counsel on this case. He cannot hear me. Gregory, let me bring you in. You're a senior engineering expert, civil engineering expert. You've heard of Lily Mine. You know, you are here with us to have this conversation today. What have you heard of Lily Mine just from a civil engineering point of view? What do you think happened at this mine? What do you think, could have potentially caused an accident like this one? In other words, what can cause mines to collapse in such a fashion?
Good evening, Lorata. Thank you for the opportunity. I learned about the Lily Mine tragedy about the time that Harry and Herman got involved. Prior to that, it was just on the news. A little bit of coverage that may have picked up at the time. I may have been involved with something and not followed it that closely, but subsequently I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time on Twitter and respond to reports that I've seen. Okay, so I've gathered quite a bit of information, some of it from Google Earth, where I've been able to see the site round about 2015, 20th of May, 2015. And then again recently, the 3rd of May, 2019. Mm-hmm. So there's dates available to show the the condition of the mine from a satellite image.
So if I can just bring you back.
Yes.
Just for the benefit of those of us who are not au fait with this type of thing, what conditions, what can cause a mining accident like this one? It's definitely not the first one to have occurred, around the world. Certainly, in our case at Lily Mine. Yes. Potentially, and I'm not talking about what actually specifically happened at Lily Mine. I just want to get our viewers a sense as to what can cause a collapse like this one.
Well, typically what causes a collapse is the tunneling that is taking place to extract gold-bearing ore from the mine. Now, in theory, the entire mass below the surface could be gold-bearing ore. But structurally, one needs to leave supporting columns to create a network of tunnels where you can remove the ore. So sometimes when a mine reaches a mature stage, miners are inclined to try and extract the very last bit of gold from a mine by removing parts of the structure that were left there before by previous generation of miners. So that is one of the ways. Sometimes there are faults in the natural occurring strata that precipitate a fall. Now, in this particular case, it was like a massive sinkhole that appeared on the surface of the earth. And there is speculation that some of the supporting columns may have been removed by organized mining operation, or some may speculate, no, it was a surprise.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And that I'm hoping that we can get Wendell Bloom to be stable. Wendell, it's fine if you do not, if putting off your video works better, please continue. I really want to bring you in here. Please take us from where Gregory is talking. There is a process of a report that was put together by the department, the DMRE, in your investigations in working in this case. Can you allude and further expatiate on whether or not what Gregory is talking about is what is contained in that particular report? Wendell? Wendell, can you hear us? We're struggling with Wendell. I really really need his input. But between Mr. Mashaba and you, Babuhir, you have intimate knowledge of what was in this DMRE report. Let me ask you, Harry, can you respond to the question that I was just about asking Wendell? What does the DMRE report say with regards to what Gregory has just alluded to us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and you're fine if you don't have to put your video on, just so that we can get your audio and the response to this question. I think that would be great. Thank you.
Yes. On 2017, DMRE had an inquiry. The findings were that there was the mine collapse due to negligence. And then that amounts to a prosecution of the mine management, because there was a rock expert, a rock engineer that made a recommendation prior the collapse of the mine, that where the portion of the mine where it collapsed, the mine management must move the entrance of the mine to another area, of which they didn't do that up until the date the mine collapsed. Those are the findings of the inquiry held by the department.
Harry, if I hear you correctly, and I see that Wendell is here. Wendell, did you hear the question that I asked Harry? I just want you to give us the official answer as somebody who has been working with this DMRE report in defense of the case on behalf of the Lily miners. You know, what happened? What does the DMRE report say about what happened at Lily Mine?
The first thing that we have to understand, Lerato, is the context of the report. The context of the report is to make a finding on what was the cause of death in an incident such as this. That finding was related to how the mine was managed and operated for an extensive period prior to the collapse. And there was a finding that mine management and owners should be held accountable for the manner in which they conducted mine operations that led to the collapse. So that was the purpose of that report. But what was very fatal in that report is that report shows to extend its mandate into making a finding on the irretrievability of the miners without any scientific evidence to support such a finding. And that's in broad terms what the report is about.
We seem to be having again a terrible audio with Wendell. Let me bring in my colleague who currently is my technical expert behind the scenes. He's not on the screen, everyone, but you know, Michael Beaumont is very intimately, has got intimate knowledge of this issue as well as the report I'm referring to. Michael, can you just please respond to this question, just so that our viewers can get more clarity, because I think it's a little bit confusing because we are losing audio between Harry and Wendell.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lerato. So I think the key thing is that there's been a number of reports that have come out of the DMRE in respect of the collapse of Lily Mine. I think critically, for the sake of this conversation, there are two elements that we really need to focus on. The first element is that the report has found that mine management was culpable in the collapse of Lily Mine because of a number of safety measures that were not followed, because of many collapses that were not reported as is required, and because there was a particular process which was undermining the structural integrity of the mine that was found to be integral in the collapse of the mine itself. And this related apparently to mining under the structural support beams that was holding up the entry to the mine. I think secondly, and this is the part that, we have played a key role in from our perspective in Action SA, is that the report went on to make a finding that the container could not be retrieved, which is something that we have never believed to be correct and that we have found to be fundamentally untrue. And we know that is untrue because all of the companies who want to take over that mine, it's a very profitable mine, all of the companies who want to take over that mine, the very first thing that they pledge to do is to retrieve the container. So they are pledging to do something that's clearly very possible. So it was a legal process that our team led, that they demanded the documentation that formed the basis of that decision to deem the container irretrievable. And ultimately, it was discovered that there was no scientific basis for that decision. And it is really a tragedy, Lorato, that for years, the former miners and families have had to undergo such an incredible injustice, such an incredible indignity as to not be able to bury the remains of their loved ones. And that finding has been based on absolutely nothing other than lies for all those years.
Thank you for that explanation and rescuing that part of the conversation, Michael. I think that's very, very important. The idea of irretrievability of this container. I will come to that because that's a very key issue. I think that's why we're all here, and that's why the miners and Harry and his colleagues are fighting for in the end. Gregory, can I bring you in here? The DMRE report, as Michael has alluded, has found that there are many failed mini collapses, the mine management, in other words, failed to report these mini collapses that were taking place, and they ignored basic, mine safety requirements. Can you support that? Is this true, and how serious is a mine's failure to do so, a mine's failure to report these things legally? How serious is action like that from mine management?
Well, I can expect that kind of thing to happen. The way things happen in the world and in our country, one can expect this kind of mismanagement to occur, where basic tasks that officials and technical experts need to undertake on a daily basis are neglected to some extent, where inspections need to be done and reports need to be completed on a daily basis. Okay, so that is highly probable. Then if I could just jump to the finding that there was no scientific evidence on which the finding was made that the container was irretrievable. That is actually a point where I started getting involved in commenting on the issue, because I've got a little saying, can't is my aunt and canny is my tanny. There's no such thing as can't, okay? So I came to the conclusion that this whole retrieval exercise is driven by information. Now, I've heard a lot of new facts this evening, even, right? I've never read the reports from the Department of Mineral Affairs and so on. Okay.
And I want just to be crisp on this one.
Yes.
Again, this is a big topic, and time is running away from us. Yes. In a straightforward fashion.
Yes.
Your expertise say yes. What? Just a guesstimate of your yes. What you know and the experience you've had yes. as a civil engineer.
Okay, there are 4 ways to retrieve the mortal remains of the deceased. One is by inside the container, or removing just the remains themselves. Okay, it's via going via the underground route, or from above. And in my opinion, the based on the information that I've seen, and is that removal of the mortal remains from above is a method that I could describe from what I can see. It would basically involve creating a vertical shaft at a position, at an appropriate position, a vertical shaft that is constructed from the top down with a concrete collar.
So basically, what I'm hearing you say, and I'm sorry to cut in here. I just want to get in a few more comments. You know,
Yes.
time is running away from us. So basically, you are saying that there is strong possibility that the remains, the container, or the remains of the miners can be retrieved, number one, and that can also be done safely. We can do so
Yes.
safely.
Yes, everything that is done must be done safely. So if the option to remove the remains or the container from underground would take an investigation and examination of the information available. Likewise, from above, there can be two ways to remove. If one were to remove the container from above, it would involve a lot of heavy earthwork equipment and creating an inclined slope from where it could be pulled out.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Mashaba, I want to come back to, in your remarks, you made reference to the Chilean example of 2010, the San Jose mine, similar accident happened, miners sunk even more feet underground, and there was a rescue operation and it was successful. The miners were retrieved from underground and they were still alive. You've hinted at the idea of political meddling and involvement and underhandedness in this matter on the part of our government. Can you elaborate on why you believe that? And if you were in fact the person, Musebenzi Zwane at the time, and now we have Gwede Mantashe, what would you have done to change the situation that we currently, or that the miners currently find themselves in?
Lerato and fellow South Africans, the mining industry in South Africa, it's a very highly regulated industry, including ensuring that there are safety measures in place, and in the event of an accident, so that there are consequences as to really what really transpired. You will have accidents which are normal accidents, but this particular one, as far as I'm concerned, this was not an accident, because the report of the DMR has indicated that where they've had the collapses of this mine, and the mine owners were warned about these dangers at least 2 years before this actual accident happened. That is why I don't really call this an accident. But at the same time, in our country, you don't just really have the Department of Minerals, DMRE. You also have the Department of Labor. In the event of an accident where there are casualties, dead or alive, the Department of Labor has to also get involved. But in this particular case, I think for us, for the last now 5 years on Friday, where people of this country, the families were lied to that this container cannot be retrieved. That's why when our Harry and the team were relating this to me, I said, this can't be possible that this container cannot really be retrieved. Three bodies underground, and we as a country are prepared to just sit back and say, let's forget about it. That's why we started engaging DMRE. Our lawyers, unfortunately, when they is unable to really communicate, we had to really use the expensive legal channels to actually give us tons and tons of documentations, which meant nothing, including actually involving the parliamentary committee in Parliament to really come in. And now they've admitted that that container can be retrieved. Right now, obviously the mine is under business rescue practitioners who, as far as I'm concerned, I have absolutely no idea why on earth they are not making a decision. As far as we are aware, they've confirmed this with our lawyers before Christmas, early December, that they've got 2 offers on the table. They've got to make a decision. Just last week, they had a meeting in our lawyers' offices, made a commitment that they will publish the preferred bidder for this mine. And the bidders are committing, the first thing that they will do is to retrieve the container, to pay all the creditors, including the miners, because if the miners were affected, were never paid up to today. So What I need to understand why the South African government, for all this time, I've tried to make contact with Minister Mantashe on numerous occasions to get involved. He's absolutely not interested whatsoever. So what I fail to understand is, why is our government not interested in this particular matter?
So is it your sense then, and I ask this from the Chilean experience, and I say, this container is literally 70 meters underground. The Chilean one was almost 700 meters, from what I understand, underground. Is it your sense then? Is it your answer to us that, you know, our government simply just didn't have political will? I mean, what is the difference between what the Chilean government was able to achieve, having the whole world, imagination captured in this issue? You know, how come we're not able to do the same? I just want to get your sense on that, and I want to bring in Wendell on this one because he's working on it from technically from the legal side. Just in a minute, Mr. Mashaba, if you can just take me through what your thoughts on the involvement or lack thereof from our government's side of things.
Well, it is no longer just really a theoretical matter. It is definite that our government has got absolutely no interest whatsoever with the retrieval of this container. You can imagine.
Why? Why would that be the case? These are our citizens.
That is something that we need to unearth, and we are going to unearth it, because we even having problems. We actually even applied to go for private prosecution of the people involved, the mine owners, because they're responsible for the death of the 3 people. Because we can't say those people are still alive. There's just no way. And we are having problems with it, with our criminal justice system. If they're not interested in pursuing this matter, the Constitution of South Africa allows for private prosecution. We are being made to run around. So what is actually holding the criminal justice system? What is holding the Department of Labor? What is holding DMRE? What is holding the president of the country to have interest in this matter? Only God knows.
Wendell, can I bring you in? Can I bring you in here? Why the inaction? Why the lethargy from our government's side of things to move on this? I mean, it's been 5 years. The Chilean experience, people were underground almost 70 days, you know, about 3 months. The miners were retrieved. They were all retrieved. All 33 of them came out. They were alive. Why the lethargy on our side, from just legally, from your experience, from your expertise, having worked on this case? I'm traumatized by technology this evening. Michael, do you want to come in? I know you communicate a lot with the legal team, you know, on this. Can you just come in 1 minute? Can you just give us a sense?
Certainly, and my condolences. Technology, when it's working against you, there's nothing you can do about it. But, you know, really, Lerato, what I want to suggest to you and to this panel is that if you look at how widespread the efforts have been to deny the former miners and families what is owed to them, you cannot believe that this is a mistake. It is deliberate. When you consider that the DMRE has a report that says that this container could not be retrieved, and we found out that that is based on nothing. When you find out that the NPA has not moved any closer in 5 years to prosecute the findings in the DMRE report, which finds that mine management was culpable, when you find that court orders are forcing the miners away from the mine, being enforced by 100 armed police officers, when their tents are being petrol bombed at night and being intimidated, when there's a syndicate of illegal mining that continues right now to this day, that law enforcement appears to have no interest in stopping whatsoever, and a business rescue process that is dragging on and on, despite
where are we with that? Where are we with the business rescue? Where are we? I mean, is this happening? Are we going to get new miners, new owners of the mine anytime soon? I mean, what can the families expect? Can they expect to be sitting and camping outside the mine for another 2+ years?
I think what the former miners and the families can expect, Lerato, is that we're going to fight for them in this case. And that's what we can say with absolute certainty. Because unfortunately, what we have seen in this case, including from the business rescue practitioners, is that we get close to finality and then something stops the process and it has to start all over again. But these delays are all working in favor of mine management who ultimately, the retrieval of that container represents criminal charges for them. And this is what we find deeply frustrating about this case. But the good news for the former miners and family in this particular matter is at the end of the day, the business rescue process is a creature of a court order. And if they are not going to proceed on this, then we will go and we will hold them in contempt of court for not doing what the court has ordered them to do with urgency.
Thank you for that, Michael. I now want to bring you back in, and I'm coming to you, Gregory. I'm going to need your final thoughts on this. I can't believe how fast time has gone. Mr. Mashaba, legal counsel, legal matters like this one do not come cheap. Who's footing the bill on behalf of these miners?
Well, you can imagine, I think for us as a new organization, really be funded to a large extent by my family, but ordinary South Africans are giving us 500 rands, 1,000 rands, 20,000 rands, 100,000. These are resources. I can tell you to date, our legal costs, including forensic investigation, close to 1 million rands. This is the money that we should have really used for our own political work, not to really deal with the Lily Mine tragedy. Unfortunately, we've got a government that is determined to really frustrate all our efforts. But we are used to it in South Africa the last 26 years for government to really be able to do what they are constitutionally obliged to do. You've got to take them to court. And we are at the stage, I had extensive discussions with our legal people today that the only last option now is to take the business rescue practitioners to court because they are in contempt of court. They've made definite promises with us. We know they've got offers of buying this mine, including actually retrieving of the body, paying off the creditors. Why they're refusing to really make the determination is beyond me. And we agreed with our legal firm this morning to say, look, let us go to court. Actually, now we go for the business rescue practitioners because honestly and truly, personally, as a non-legal person, I take them to really be complicit. They are part of this scheme, working with our government, with the mine owners to really frustrate the effort.
Thank you. Thank you for those comments, Mr. Mashaba. Gregory, as a civil engineering professional with much experience in this field, how does this make you feel? How does this make you feel as a professional in the field? What does this mean for your field to have an issue like this one that seems to be putting your profession and your ability to carry out the work that you can to shame like this?
Well, initially, a lot of time was lost, the hours after the tragedy, where experts should have applied their minds intensely at that point in time to work out a way to recover the victims, if I can call them, from the container. I would have thought from underground, because from above it was a very dangerous situation with soil slipping. But now that we've been through the business rescue and there seems to be a plan to redesign the mine, the new owners might be tempted to link the rescue or the retrieval to their redesigned mine instead of undertaking the retrieval as an independent exercise. In theory, any willing organization could undertake the rescue as an independent exercise.
Great. Mr. Mashaba, in 30 seconds, what do you want to say just as a final word for the families in commemoration of the 5th year of that container having collapsed? And also you can throw in a word for our government and the DMRE while you're at it in 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, it's totally impossible for me to really express how I feel. I would really feel like this, but you can imagine deeply how the families are feeling. I would never really be able to give a fair expression, but it's really very painful. And I can only appeal to our government to say, please have mercy on our fellow South Africans. And also, I think, lastly, I'd like to really appeal to the South African people at large. the almost 60 million South Africans. If you are going to let this government do this to the 3 families, I can tell you tomorrow is going to happen to you.
Thank you. Michael, any final thoughts?
Well, I think so much has been said, Lerato, but I think really as South Africans, we should be ashamed of our government in the way that they have handled this particular matter. And just to echo the thoughts of Herman right there, you know, we are a country of a constitutional democracy. We have human rights protected in our Bill of Rights. But at the end of the day, if our fellow South Africans are treated in this manner by their own government, and we stand by and we do nothing about that, then we really, you know, are not living up to what it should mean to be a South African. And in this particular case, I think it's very important that 5 years have gone by, and we do not allow that to mean that we care less than we did when it just happened. We need South Africans to be getting more angry about the time that has gone by since the collapse of this mine.
And for the families, I mean, can they expect to be camping? You know, I've been there, I've been in that environment. Can they expect to be camping, you know, out there and living out there in those conditions for much longer?
Now, Lerato, your question's a difficult one because, you know, I would love to say that, you know, this thing will be solved any day now. But the reality is, with the legal proceedings that we are having to use to solve this matter, we aren't going to be the ones that continue to break false promises to them. What I can tell you is that they are committed to do whatever they have to do to be there until that container is retrieved. And we are committed to support them in any single way we possibly can. But we are not going to be one of the many lots of politicians who have come in there, made promises, and left with their promises having never delivered upon them.
Well, with that, we have reached the end of our discussions. Thank you once again, South Africa, for your continued engagement with us. This has been a very difficult conversation to have. You know, sadly, we have lost Mr. Mazibuko, you know, because he's out there, as I say, in those conditions. Connectivity is really difficult for him, and I know that he would have loved to be with us for the duration of this discussion. We really honor them and their efforts, where they are with his colleagues, and that we look forward to the day when that container will be retrieved, and that the remains of the 3 miners whose names we must never forget can come up and be buried with dignity, as with every person in our country deserves. We thank you, South Africa, for all of your thoughts and your suggestions that you keep on sending through to us. We remind you to please continue to do so through our public email address, info@actionsa.org.za, failing which, if you would like to get in touch with me personally, you can email me at lerato@actionsa.org.za. Please do not also forget to visit our website, www.actionsa.org.za, for more information on the work that we do and also the activities that we undertake politically on a day-to-day basis, for us to be able to finally, at some point, reach the aspirations that we have for a more prosperous and better South Africa for future generations. Thank you to my panel. You have been wonderful. Thank you for all of your thoughts and all of your remarks this evening. Good night, South Africa. Until next time.